Traveling the ether back to you, to a land so far away. I feel the distance in between.
Traps in my maiden abyss. Hello everybody, I am PhenomSage, and welcome back to another Made in Abyss episode review. Today we're going to be covering episode 6, Seeker Camp. Now, this week's episode, prior to what I thought last week, I thought we were getting into some kind of climax this episode, but it feels like the climax is actually coming next episode. And that's kind of been the running theme of this entire series so far, is that it feels like it keeps almost getting to a climax, but it doesn't quite get there. Not that that's a negative, it's just more so like my expectations versus what the show is actually going for, which is kind of a slow burn up to a really dramatic peak. So if that didn't give it away, this week's episode was on the slower side, although I did hear that it did adapt a decent amount of the manga, which is weird because everybody was saying, oh man, episode 4 is so slow, it barely adapted any of the manga, whereas I felt like this was a slower type of episode than what we got in episode 4. And granted, I know that the dialogue scenes and the actual canon material will alter people who have already read the manga's opinion, but that's just my view of what I've seen in these episodes so far. But yeah, from what I've heard, next week's episode is looking to be kind of a midway climax point besides the ending of the series, so I'm really looking forward to that. But enough about that. Even though this was a slower episode, we did still get a lot of information and a lot of interesting things that I want to talk about. One of them, of course, being traps. You know, my intro aside, I kind of am not surprised by seeing a trap in this series. I have no idea why, it's just not really surprising. When I saw it, I was like, oh, yep, that's a thing that fits. Anyways, we'll cover that later. Of course, we're going to be covering this chronologically, so the episode picks up right where we left off last episode. Ozen grabbed Reg's arm as he was trying to ascend into the Seeker Camp, and nothing really came out of that. She just threw them back down. So she just lets him in. I guess that was just some false tension to cliffhang us last episode. So as Rico and Reg ascend into the Seeker Camp, we once again see the effects of the ascent of Abyss. And I thought that was a nice touch that we see it again as she's ascending into the Seeker Camp, and it just shows that it's everywhere. Like, you can barely walk up a flight of stairs, like someone in the comments was saying, without actually feeling the effects. After ascending, we are finally introduced to Ozen the Immovable. Or Unmovable, we'll talk about that later, but what an introduction to her character. It is just... Ozen is the MVP of this episode. She had so many great moments, so much good dialogue, and I know I'm going out of order by kind of talking about this, but I really want to cover this right off the bat. How excellently they built up her character this episode. Someone on my last video actually said, I hope that they include a good look at how tall Ozen actually is, and they definitely did. Not only did they show it, but they had Reg comment on how massive she is. He says that she is over 2 meters tall, and when you first see her towering over Reg and Rico, it is an intimidating sight, I can tell you that. On top of her height, they also do a good job of just making her out to be this menacing, imposing figure with her dialogue and her disposition. Now, when we first heard about Ozen from Habo in episode 4, I made a theory that Ozen turned maybe bad or evil because of something to do with depth 6 and how, or layer 6, and how you lose your humanity by ascending from that layer. And I wasn't quite on the mark with that one. I don't know exactly what's the deal with this, but in the beginning they have this opening narration that kind of basically says that Ozen became this way because she's been down here so long. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that being the reasoning. I mean, you would start to go crazy if you had been down in the abyss this long. And not to say that she's crazy, but she's definitely weird. So yeah, I'm okay with that explanation. Let me know if there is more to it and I just misunderstood what they were saying, but obviously I was wrong with that layer 6 thing, although I do still think that we're going to see that come back into play later on. I don't know when, but I do think that we will see that. Now, we'll cover Ozen in more depth later on with her more important dialogue at the end of the episode, but I did want to comment on something she says at the beginning of this episode in the room where they're all briefly talking, and it kind of highlights the feelings that Ozen has towards Rico. And I don't want to say I was right, but I was kind of right, because in this dialogue she says that essentially in this scene, Rico bows her head to Ozen and thanks her for bringing her back up from the abyss. And Ozen's just smirking. She's like, there were so many times that I just wanted to leave you there, and that kid would have followed me. And she's referring to Liza. I'll get into that later. So I feel like I was at least partially correct that Liza does not like Rico because of the hardships that she faced bringing her back up from the abyss and not even being able to get the bell. I don't know if she was with them when they got the bell the next time they went down, but I just found that a really cool conversation and really highlighted Ozen's character when she just says, yeah, I wanted to abandon you so many times down there. Moving right along, at the end of this scene and the conversation that they had, Ozen actually gives them blue whistles. And when I saw that, I was like, we're leveling up? We're ranking up, boys? But no, it's temporary. It's only in the camp. So other cave raiders, which we haven't seen, by the way, we haven't seen any other cave raiders there, but it's just so if any other cave raiders see them, they're not questioning, oh, why are red whistles down here? What? And as leverage, Ozen actually holds on to Liza's white whistle and says, I will give you this back when you give me the blue whistles back. So she clearly has no intention of letting them keep those blue whistles, which is a shame. In the scene that follows, we have a nice little scene with Reg and the girl that we saw from last episode called Maraluk. That's only one of the translations I've seen. In the official translation, they actually call her Marulk or Marulk. It's so much easier to just say Maraluk, so that's what I'm gonna call her. But it turns out Maraluk is actually a boy, and that's what I was referring to with my intro. I don't know why, but I am not surprised at all to see a trap in this, and I'd also like to revoke my statement last episode. Once you get a clear view of Maraluk, he looks nothing like Rem, so it's whatever. Ignore that statement. It was just that one shot from last episode where it really threw me off with the similarity. I did want to mention something interesting that I read about Maraluk and this revelation. Apparently in the manga, they make it a lot less clear that Maraluk is actually a boy, so I don't know if the anime just took leeway with that or I just heard wrong information, but that's what I heard, is that the anime actually kind of hit it on the nose a little bit more than the manga that Maraluk is actually a boy. So after the most shocking revelation of the entire series this far, we get some bonding between Maraluk and Reg, and later on we get some bonding between Rico, and eventually Maraluk just straight up says, I'll ask Ozen if you guys can stay here and just stay here with me and go cave raiding here. Because these are the first children she's ever seen, he's ever seen down here. So it really makes sense why he would want them to stay down here. But what's most surprising is how quickly Rico is just like, yeah, sure, I'll abandon my quest right now and stay here with you. I mean, obviously, like 2 seconds later, she says, oh wait, no, I forgot the entire reason why I came down here. But it was just weird that Rico was just immediately like, oh yeah, let's do it. I guess that's just her inner child. She really wants to be down here and make friends and go cave raiding. During this entire scene with Rico and Reg and Maraluk, we see a little cut of Ozen standing on the outside of the seeker camp, and you can see her reminiscing about the white whistle and Liza herself, and we see a brief glimpse of Liza. She looks super badass. I hope we see more of her as the series goes on. But it kind of just made me wonder, what was their relationship? Was she just there because she was in the squad, or did she actually have some kind of friendship with Liza? And throughout the entire episode, whenever she refers to Liza, she always refers to her as that child or that kid. And that's a clue. That's a clue for what she thinks of her. She doesn't call her a brat, she calls her a child. And what we've heard about Liza so far has made her seem to be childish. Like, she drunk a lot, she liked to party. Like, I feel like they did have a friendship in the past, which kind of makes it more fucked up how easily she refers to her death. Before I move on to the next scene, I did want to touch on how fucking cool this secret camp is. Like, the imagination on this dude who wrote this. Tsukushi, I think his name was. His imagination is just so fleshed out. You can see it everywhere in this series. Like, the designs, the architecture, the way he incorporates so many different things is awesome. And the inside of the secret camp is just so cool. They're living inside this tree, basically. And you see the way the wood is carved out into different little rooms, and you see like this kind of almost irrigation system in Rico and Reg's room. It's so cool. Just wanted to comment on that because I've been commenting on all the cool shit that I've seen in this series so far. The slums, the different creature designs, it's all just so well done. So as everybody is sleeping, Rico wakes up in the middle of the night and suddenly needs to go pee. Classic Rico. So she leaves the room, and as she's looking for the bathroom, you think to yourself, oh, this is where she's gonna see Ozen doing something or something. But instead, we get something way more unexpected. Rico enters this room, and what she comes across is this horrifying creature. And at first, I was like, whoa, is this one of the Abyss creatures? And it very well may be. But later in the episode, Ozen comments on it and just doesn't think anything of it. So I think it's something that is part of the secret camp or something that belongs to Ozen, but it is creepy. The design on that was horrifying. It was basically like a rib and skeleton ripped out of a person and then like had a mouth attached to the top. It was so weird. And what I find most entertaining about this scene is that when Rico sees that, she runs. She's so scared. But instead of actually telling anybody, her first instinct is to run straight back to her room and just cover herself up under Reg's blanket with him in his bed. And that was hilarious to me. Like, she didn't tell anybody, she just stayed in there and ended up peeing on his bed, unfortunately. The next day, Ozen approaches them and Rico asks, what the hell was that? What is going on here? And like I said before, Ozen acts like she knows something and says, do you want to know? And Rico, with no hesitation, is just like, yeah, I want to know. So apparently they need to go to Ozen's room to be able to find out what they need to find out. And on the way there, Ozen has a lot of standout dialogue that just cemented her as one of my favorite characters in this series so far. Basically, the entire way, Ozen is just questioning and taunting Rico for descending further into the abyss to find her mother. And straight up Nat style, just tells her Liza is dead. And except for this time, she's not actually going to apologize if her like Nat did. And I just love how this dialogue that she has builds up her character even more so than the beginning of the episode did. And she's basically the only adult who has just straight up said, this is stupid, you're not going down there. She says that she visited Liza's grave personally to find that white whistle and the note, and further said that that note isn't Liza's handwriting. So a lot of speculation can be made about that. Is Liza actually alive? What's going on here? If I had to guess right now, I would probably say that Liza faked her own death or something. I have no idea why, and I know Ozen said herself she would never write something like that, even as a joke, but I just can't see what other reason there could have been. And during this scene, we get one of the best facial expressions I've seen in a long time. Ozen just makes the most evil, happiest smile face I've ever seen. And I did see in a thread what was supposedly the manga panel that they were translating from, and I don't know if it's true, because the manga panel that I saw was a lot different from what they did in the anime. But if it is a true panel-on-panel comparison, I actually think I like the anime version more, because the manga panel is kind of just like this really creepy, expressionless face, whereas in the anime they gave her a sinister looking appearance. So I don't know if that was a correct comparison or not. Maybe you guys can tell me in the comments, but it was really interesting, that's for sure. Also, I have to say the voice acting was on point for Ozen this entire episode. Ohara Sayaka is the voice actress's name. She did an excellent job, and it turns out that she actually voice acts Irisfield from Fate Zero, which is a completely different tone and character and disposition, which just makes it all the more impressive that she has this kind of range, where she can go from like a good-natured woman like Irisfield to this menacing, imposing woman like Ozen. It's really well done. She's a great voice actress. Finally, we get to the closing scene where they finally reach what I assume is Ozen's room, or it might just be this separate room altogether. And as we enter, we see Liza's gear on the side. They don't really comment on that, but I'm pretty sure that's Liza's gear, so I guess she got that as well. And they leave us yet again on another cliffhanger where Rico spots this giant box at the end of the room that they're in. Now, at first I was like, what the hell is this? Is that a box? Is that like a gateway or door into something? But on rewatch, I can actually tell that I assume that that is the Curse Repelling Box that they brought Rico up from the Abyss to begin with. So I guess she got to keep it or something? I'm really curious as to why they chose to cliffhang it with the box. What is the importance of that box? What are we going to learn about that next episode? Like I said at the beginning, I've heard next episode is going to be pretty crazy. Although then again, that's what I heard about this episode, so I don't know what to trust anymore. I'm just gonna wait and see next episode to see if things get crazy or if we're just gonna continue this kind of slow burn plot. Not that I have a problem with slow burn. Slow burn works really well in the right circumstances. But it's just a wait and see kind of thing now for me. Either way, I'm really excited for the next episode. The Unmovable Sovereign. And I don't... Your guess is as good as mine for why they chose to spell it unmovable instead of immovable like they've been doing this entire series so far. But the Unmovable Sovereign hints to me that we're probably going to be getting some kind of actual fight or confrontation with Ozen next episode, which is incredibly hype. I can't wait for that. If that's what people mean by an actual climax to this inverted forest arc, if you will, then I'm totally cool with it. That sounds awesome. Either way, that's all from me for this episode review of Made in Abyss. Tell me what you guys thought about the episode as a whole, and let me know if you guys are excited for next episode, if it's going to be this huge climax like people are saying. Thanks again for all the comments. Like I said last episode, I love discussing this series with you and appreciate all the time that you guys take out to answer my questions or clear up confusions or whatever. It really means a lot. I would like to say though, please avoid mentioning anything that you consider a spoiler, or just straight up don't mention anything that hasn't been explicitly said or hinted at in the anime, as I don't want to know things too ahead of time. And I haven't really gotten anything spoiled for me so far because you guys have been awesome with not spoiling things, but I'm just afraid it's going to happen. So please, if you could, just keep the spoilers on the low. I love all the manga comparisons you guys are making. It makes me really get a grasp for what this adaptation is doing. So yeah, just thank you again for all the comments and support you've been giving me on these episode reviews. But yeah, that's all from me for this episode review. Thank you guys for watching, and have an awesome day.
Distance in